Good morning, BookTube, YouTube. This is Johnny. Thought I'd make a video. It is May the 19th, 2024. It's 9:28 in the morning here in Southwest Michigan. Today is a Sunday, and I thought, since I'm alone here in the hermit hut, as the hermit hut is located in the vast American wasteland, today is my wife and I's 45th wedding anniversary. We always exchange cards on our anniversary. 45 years we've been married, raised kids. Kids are married. We have 8 grandchildren. Life has been good. The Lord has been faithful. So, yeah, writing in my diary this morning, I'm on page 440 for the year 2440. Yeah, I thought about getting out the diaries when I was, like I mentioned in my videos, that when I left California back in '78, that I burned all my diaries. But I didn't burn the whole year of '78, and I kept some stuff from 1977 that's down in the lower level in a box. And I thought of getting down and reading what I was writing at the time that I met Carol at Reformed Bible College and when we got married. I met Carol like in September and May of 1978. We got married. We knew each other 6 months. Yeah, we got married. I met her, and then 6 months later we got married, and we've been married 45 years. It's kind of like you look over the years that you're married, and it just seems like a blur. It's just boom. You know, it's like, where did all that time go? So yeah, so what you have today is today. Today is your marriage. Today is when you enjoy your marriage relationship. I mean, I can't remember the past. I remember things. I've been keeping a diary the whole year, all the years we've been married. I have 45 years of day-to-day diaries when we were raising our 3 children and when we were at Reformed Bible College, and then we moved to Jackson, Mississippi when our kids were little. Well, Beth hadn't been born. Beth was born the last year I was in seminary. Our daughter Beth. Josiah, was only 3 months old when we moved to Jackson, Mississippi. He was born that August, and we moved to Jackson, Mississippi. I think Caleb was like 2 years old. Our oldest, who lives down the street with his wife Emily and our 2 granddaughters Josie and Cora, and we're taking care of our son's dog Ollie this weekend. Yeah, and then Josiah lives in Linden, Washington. He is married to Hannah and has a girl, Marika, and Lilia, and our daughter Bethany lives in Denver. Is married to Andy, has Louisa, Margaret, Jack, and little Nora Jean. They're all going to be here this summer. So yeah, the years go by, the kids grow up, they go to elementary school, middle school, they go to high school, they went to college, they became teachers, got married. Caleb's not a teacher, Josiah is, and Bethany now is a stay-at-home mom. Yeah, and the years go by. Our oldest is 42. Josiah will be 41 in August. So the years go by. So now we've been married 45 years, and who knows what the Lord has for us in the future. We're all getting old, but still deeply in love with my wife. So yeah, this Sunday, I thought I'd just show you what I'd be reading throughout the week. Tomorrow morning we go to Blue Stockings $1 bag sale, so I'll show those books in the future. I still got a library used book sale that we got from Hudsonville last week. I just thought I'd show you what I'll be reading in the week. Still reading Reformed Systematic Theology, Church and Last Things by Joel R. Beeke. Still reading that. And reading Ruined Sinners to Reclaim, Sin and Depravity, Historical, Biblical, and Theological and Pastoral Perspectives, edited by David Gibson and Jonathan Gibson. Yeah, I read this yesterday, the essay. It was pretty interesting. I read it in the afternoons, which is unusual, but it was called Give What You Command and Then Command Whatever You Will. Augustine, Pelagius, and the Question of Original Sin by Bradley G. Green. So I'll finish reading that today, that essay. And I'm reading From Heaven He Came and Sought Her, Definitive Atonement, Historical and Biblical, Theological and Pastoral Perspectives, edited by David Gibson and Jonathan Gibson. This is in the Doctrines of Grace series. They got 3 more coming out in the future, unless the Lord returns. And I also been reading Biblical Theology, a Canonical, Thematic, Ethical Approach by Andreas Kostenberger and Gregory Goswell. Yeah, as you know, my wife and I were reading through the New Testament in the mornings. This morning we read we're reading in the Acts of the Apostles, and we'll be tomorrow morning, Lord willing, on chapter 22. And then you go into Romans in the New Testament, and then you have 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Galatians, and then it goes in Ephesians, etc. I'm still reading New Testament Theology by Eckhart J. Schnabel. And reading this new Reformation commentary on Isaiah, chapters 1 through 39, edited by Jeff Fisher. So I'll be reading these throughout the week, Lord willing. I'm kind of holding off on biblical theology and New Testament theology because we're in the book of Acts, and I don't want to get ahead of us. And in Reformed Systematic Theology, I'm reading on the church, ecclesiology. So this morning I'll be finishing the essay, Ruined Sinners to Reclaim. As far as what I've been reading in the afternoons, in the evenings, I've been reading Harry Cruz, A Childhood Biography of a Place. Yeah, I want to finish this because next month Penguin is going to reprint another of Harry Cruz's books, which I would plan to read, but I want to finish reading this one. What's it called? What's the next one they're going to publish? They're going to publish the Knockout Artists. by Harry Crews. Next June 11th it comes out. Harry Crews is one of my... I have a lot of favorite writers, as you can tell. Joyce Carol Oates, Philip Roth, Saul Bellows, John Updike, Jack Kerouac, Hunter S. Thompson, Ann Beatty, Jim Harrison, Gore Vidal, Norman Mailer, Thomas Pynchon, people like that I really like. Mary Gordon, yeah, I have a lot of favorite American writers. Mark Twain, Nathaniel Hawthorne, David Thoreau, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Emily Dickinson as far as poetry, Dos Palas, John Cheever, it just goes on and on. William Faulkner, Henry James, Dennis Johnson, Vollman, D.C. Boyle. It just goes on and on. Brannigan. Just goes on and on. Anyway, so I'm reading Harry Crews, The Childhood Biography of a Place. Still reading Straw Dogs, Thoughts on the Human and Other Animals by John Gray. Reading City Poet, The Life and Times of Frank O'Hare by Brad Gooch. And reading in the afternoons Empire of Guns, The Violent Making of the Industrial Revolution by Paria Satea. I can't pronounce her name. Still reading this. And the big chunker, Miss Mackintosh, My Darling by Margaret Young. Now this is over 1,321 pages. I've read 659. And what I do in the evenings, I read like 10, 15, 20 pages a night. Now, I don't think I did it last night. I took a break and I was reading the Isaiah commentary and I read the Harry Crews. And, but I've been reading this pretty steadily. In the evenings, usually I read it in the evenings. Usually I read Empire of Guns in the late afternoons or early afternoons. I read City Poet before I go to bed, and his poetry, Frank O'Hare's poetry, his collected poetry I read from. I read Straw Dogs in the afternoons, sitting outside in the front in our driveway. I usually read this. Been reading this in the evenings since The Knockout Artist by Harry Crews is going to come out next month. Harry Crews, Childhood Biography of a Place. In the mornings, reading for my morning devotions. After Carol and I have our devotions, where we read from the New Testament. We're going through the Acts of the Apostles, and then we read the Valley of Vision, a collection of Puritan prayers and devotions, and then we have a prayer. Also at night, before we go to bed, my wife and I, we've been reading through a devotional book on the Psalms. We read a psalm, and then the fellow who put the book out gives a little meditation on it. So we read that before we go to bed at night. So ruined sinners to reclaim sin and depravity in historical, biblical, and theological and pastoral perspectives. And then this came out in 2013, but I really never got into it. So I alternate. I'll read one on total depravity one morning, then the next one on definitive atonement. So I'm reading this one, From Heaven He Came and Sought Her. And then I read, some mornings I read Beeke and Smalley on ecclesiology, Reformed systematic theology on ecclesiology. And then when we get past Acts and we get into Romans, I'll read New Testament theology, because I think that there is... So the next chapter in this book is on the Epistle of Hebrews. In Romans, well, I don't know. I'm almost done with this, really. So I don't know. I might just... I have the Reformation commentary on Romans. I might look through that. But like I said, I studied Romans for many years because of the, as I mentioned, studying Paul and the Torah, and as far as biblical theology, I'm on the letters of Paul. See, that's when I'll start reading this again, because he goes to the letters of Paul. So I'll read that chapter, and then it goes into the general epistles, and then it goes into a conclusion. So once we get past the Acts of the Apostles, I'll really read this throughout the week. And I read this throughout the day when I'm really kind of out of it and I can't really focus. I told you I read books that I can use to meditate, contemplation. So I've been reading this, Isaiah chapters 1 through 39. It's in the Old Testament. Isaiah is quoted extensively in the New Testament. Some people call the book of Isaiah the fifth gospel, because as you read through the New Testament, the prophecy of Isaiah is quoted constantly, and along with other Old Testament scriptures, because you have the unity of Scripture. The Bible is self-interpretive. You can't understand the New Testament without knowing the Old Testament. You can't understand the Old Testament unless you know the New Testament, because of the unity of divine Scripture. So I've been reading this. I read this yesterday evening too, because when you read, like I said, Isaiah, there's so many favorite scriptures of mine in Isaiah, and I like to find out what the different reformers, the Anabaptists, the Lutherans, the Calvinists, the Puritans, the Anglicans, what they said on those verses in Isaiah chapter 1 through 39. So that's what I'll be reading when I'm not writing in my diary, when I'm not enjoying my marriage relationship with my wife, watching the birds, going to used book sales, living in the hermit hut in a very quiet suburban neighborhood, drinking coffee. Yesterday I started working on my flower garden, which almost killed me. Yeah, I'm digging it up because after Memorial Day is when I'll plant the wildflower seeds. So yesterday I spent, in the afternoon, I should have done it in the mornings because it was hot. It was 81 degrees yesterday. It's supposed to be 81 today, but it's kind of overcast this morning. Yeah, I started digging up the flower garden, getting all the weeds out, all the stones. And then I got the weed whacker out. I mowed the lawn, chopped some weeds, and kind of overdid it. But when you got property, we have a lot of a big yard front and back, and we had landscaping done a couple of years ago, and so there's a lot of bushes and trees and flowers to deal with. I got the hoses out yesterday, the water hoses, so we can water the front and backyards. So yeah, we're coming to end of spring, going into summer. Yeah, the years go by. We've been married 45 years. I'll be 72 in August of this year. So the Lord has been good and faithful. So I hope you had a good reading weekend, that you have a good new reading week. As I said, tomorrow morning we go to the Blue Stockings bookshop, $1 bag sale. Now I think that's what the day it is. And I'll show those books if I find anything that's, I always find something. I always can find books. Because I have a lot of interest. You know, I have history, art, biography, letters, memoirs, good fiction, books on European history, First World War, American history, 19th century. It just goes on and on. You can always find something. So I will sign off. I'll write in my diary. I'll read my books. And just go through the day seeking to live unto the glory of God. So until next time, thank you for the comments. Thank you for subscribing. Do pray you're all doing well in these end times. May the Lord come quickly.